DJ Scream, Heart Radio, 105.3 The Beat, Hoodrich Radio, all that. What's up, my man?
I don't,
Spencer Graves is here. Give him your own resume. I don't want to shorten it by any means.
I don't have anything cool like Hoodrich Radio, so that's cool.
He
Now I'm
only
the
does the
morning
biggest
host.
morning show one of the biggest morning shows in Atlanta. That's it.
Now I'm the morning show host for 94.9 The Bull, and I've been in Roanoke, Virginia. I've been in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I was in right outside Philadelphia, Wilmington, Delaware for a while, St. Louis, and now call Atlanta home. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. So let's ask, how was your weekend? And how you feeling about things?
I feel different, and I think that's a good place for me to be personally.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had numerous phone calls over the course of the weekend, and we know each other, but we don't know each other, And one of the things that I was really grasping and trying to understand is the why. Why for numerous reasons. Why would that officer feel it necessary to hold down George Floyd for over 8 minutes with his knee when he's already handcuffed on the ground and not moving? Why do we have to have the real conversation of police brutality? Why does that have to be overshadowed by the looting and the vandalism and the seriousness of what I believe isn't really associated with the protest, but it is associated with the protest because it's happening where they are. So I've been really conflicted because in the white community, we know racism exists. I mean, we know it. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a human issue. I want to make sure that when you go to work, your drive to work is the same as my drive to work. I don't get pulled over. I don't know the history and the background with what you've gone through. I mean, what's it like every day DJ Scream?
Well, I think I've been blessed to see a little bit of every aspect of the world. I've been blessed to travel the world, given my talent. I came up at times in a middle class family. I've also noticed there was times where the family wasn't middle class and we were dead poor. I've been around because of my talent, some very wealthy people, you know what I mean? And I've been exposed to and I've been able to see a lot. For me personally, it's crazy. I come from the east side of Atlanta, which is Decatur, Georgia, right? And to be honest with you, coming up, because just as a teenager or going to high school out there or even going to college in Tuskegee, I can't say I had too much interaction at all with the police, just to be completely honest. When I moved to Cobb County in the year 2004, I would say, Cobb County has always had a stigma around, the police and their interaction with African Americans. Mind you, I don't have any record. I don't even know if I got a speeding ticket. I might have a parking ticket, you know what I'm saying? And I pay my taxes, you know what I'm saying? I try to educate other people in my community to do the right thing, pay their taxes and, you know what I'm saying, be aware, be a voting citizen and so forth. I literally, because I had a luxury automobile and I used to DJ this club that was on the east side, and I wouldn't get done with work till like maybe 3 a.m. Literally in my first 60 days of living in Cobb County, I was pulled over upward of 5 to 6 times. Not speeding, not no loud music, because I'm not going to blast my music at night because I hate when people blast their music and wake me up in the middle of the night. Doing the speed limit, not drunk, not drinking, nothing. Just simply an African American in a luxury automobile. That's when my frustrations began. And this is way before there was any Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. This is way before that. But it just let me know that it was real. And it was like, hey, man, I just came over to this side of town because, me and good deal on some property, nice place, you know what I'm saying? A lot of my other family lives over here. I'm not doing nothing but going to a nightclub, doing what I'm supposed to do, and just trying to drive home. And
Is that the first instance that you realize that racism exists? I'm sure it goes back further than that.
Well, again, I went to Tuskegee University. So this is a university that's predominantly Black. And to be completely honest, when I say racism, sometimes you get racism from your own color. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, in Tuskegee, there were people who I would consider, they might be a little older, and they would look at me and they say, oh, DJ Scream, and he's with the hip hop community. He represents all the stuff that hip hop represents. And I would get slack sometimes from my professors and older African Americans that didn't understand me. But to sit down and have a conversation with me is to understand me and to know that I pride myself on being a very diverse person. And a lot of that does come from my travels, and a lot of that comes from my reading and educating myself further than just the classroom. So just like me and you have a conversation, you're going to learn stuff about me, I'm going to learn stuff about you. Oh, wow, I didn't know. And we have a lot more similarities than you'll even think. You see what I'm saying? So like I was saying on the phone to you, I think the major disconnection is that a lot of time people don't communicate with people. You see what I'm saying? Like you shouldn't. I've been on the phone all weekend with a lot of my people in the community, even young people that were on the way to the protests. Most to protest, a few because they were angry, trying to calm them and make sense of the situation, right? And the thing is, I think some of the stuff that you see is anger, but it's fear. You know what I'm saying? Like the police are supposed to protect and to serve. Most African American people, when they see police, they get scared, excuse my language, shitless. Oh shit,
Right.
police. A lot of police, regardless of the color, if they see an African American or a minority, they get scared. You see what I'm saying? But
Do you think that do you think that the conversation that really makes this easier is between the leaders of the Black community and the police chiefs and the sheriff's department and our police and law enforcement groups?
I think that that's one thing that's important, but I think the most important thing is it's not consistent. And I said this on my platforms the last time we had a slew of publicized incidents with the police and African Americans, which is around 2015, 2016. And the thing is, 30 days from now, we kind of get over things. Look how we got over COVID. Oh, it's over, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's human nature. You want to get past the hard times and move on with your life. But it has to be something consistent. As a person that has grandparents that marched through Selma for civil rights back in the 60s, I know that they did it every day and they only took Sunday off. And they did it till they had blisters on their feet and they got sprayed down with water hoses and went through so much. So I guess my major frustration in it is that if that went on in the 60s, if we had an incident in 1967, the incident that I remember is 1992, right? When everything was shut down, Rodney King, there was no TV. It was weird going to elementary school for me. Like I had a white friend and it was weird, right? From 1992 to the year 2020, how much progress has been made? This is a rerun. I'm not as shocked as everybody because this is a rerun. It's just a national rerun. It's not isolated to one city. Now you're talking about 17 cities that have protests and loots and stuff on fire and people are unhappy and police are spraying people and hitting them with bullets and this and that and that. And this is the greatest country in the world or should be. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to work just as hard to find an answer and a resolution to this issue as we are working on a vaccine for a virus, because both of them are equally infecting our populations.
Honestly. You brought up how in 1992 the Rodney King thing, it was different or uncomfortable for you to go to elementary school. How was that the case?
Well, I had white friends and they didn't know, and for me, I didn't know. I was, what was I? 10 years? No, 10 years old maybe, or yeah, 10 or 11 years old. So it was weird because it was like the conversations were just awkward to be at 10 years old. It's like, well, why did they beat up Rodney King? And we're asking each other the same thing, no matter the race. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think that's horrible. And my parents were crying. These are white people saying my parents were crying about it. And it would make sense to lock them up. It probably would have saved a lot. Lock them up because it becomes a human thing. We understand that there's laws put in place and there's a system put in place. But when I look at numbers yesterday and I say, okay, they've arrested 4,800 Americans nationwide, and some of them had to be arrested. We get it, to keep the peace and so forth. But it could have potentially been 4 people. Lock them up, let them go through the justice process. You see what I'm saying? And then we figure it out from there. That's why people are angry. You're talking about locking 4 people up. You lock people up for lane change.
Right, drunk in public.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, lock them up. And then explain to us the process of what it will take for them to be, charged or sentenced or whatever the case. Explain to the people, because here you have people, just like you had all the young kids that were protesting last year and the year before that because of the mass shootings and what happened with the NRA. We need to explain to people. That is the duty of local leaders and national leaders, to explain to people, hey, here's what's going on. A crime has been committed. This is how it's set up. This is how the laws are set up. This is what we have to do. You can't fight it with, hey, y'all better not do that. That creates bad energy and rebellion. People are angry and disheartened by it, and everybody grieves in different ways. If someone has a family member that dies, you have one family member that prays about it and is sad. You have the other family member that's angry and is mad at everybody and blames everybody. You have the other family member that drinks themselves to death or under the table. You see what I'm saying? Like, everybody grieves in different ways. So I think that the leadership has to understand that, and the conversations have to be had, and we have to educate people on what's going on. Because if they feel like, everybody already felt shorted by Ahmaud Arbery, like, oh, well, this video, when it came out, nothing would have happened.
However, the arguments are still the same there. You brought up, if you lock up the 4 officers, you probably could have squashed a lot of what we're seeing that happened over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Ahmaud Arbery. If it was brought up when it happened, mm-hmm. and it was handled the appropriate way, mm-hmm. we wouldn't be seeing the issues that we see now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the people I talk to, man, they're not asking for all they're asking is for justice, and to feel like anyone that commits a crime will have the same, will go through the same sentencing or charges. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter if I or you commit the crime. If we commit the crime, it should be equal punishment. That's what most people want. Just like I hear the cry about women who want equal pay. You see what I'm saying?
So it's the validation of, I know this happened. Mm-hmm. This is the penalty that fits that crime.
That's the way it should be. That's fair. This is a free and equal country, right? That's the way it should be. I'm not saying, like, if you do a crime, regardless of what color, regardless of what, like, financial class you're in. You see what I'm saying? Like, nobody should be above the law, including the law. And that's what most people want. I'm talking about when I'm talking on the phone to a 15, 16-year-old that's on the way to downtown Atlanta. We mad. We want justice, man. This happened 5 years ago. Ain't nothing changed yet. That's what they're thinking. Now I have to explain to them in my own way, like, look, this is why you get politically involved. This is why you vote. This is why you do petitions. This is why you do these things to change things. That's the proper way. But it's not only just their duty, it's the duty of the leaders, and the leaders on top of the leaders too. This should never have been an issue. Every time it happens should be the last time. And my fear is, I'm going to be completely honest, Spencer, my fear is that it happens again in the next month or two. That's my fear. And it's not too far-fetched. And I'm not even talking about from protests and civil unrest. I'm talking about it just happens in the middle of wherever, and there's a traffic stop, and somebody decides for whatever reason that if I don't like this person, I can murder them and I'll get off on it. And that has to stop at some point. And if it doesn't stop, then we've seen, man, you know what I mean? We've seen what rebellion in America is. We've seen a Boston Tea Party. We've seen it, man. You know what I'm saying? And this just feels a little different because, like I said, in 92, it was a little more isolated to a city. But there are 17 states under curfew and what a National Guard have gone to. See what I'm
State
saying?
of emergencies.
State of emergency. Like that sounds warish.
You know, I'd said to a friend of mine that as far removed as we are from the days of Martin Luther King Jr. walking the streets of Selma and fighting for civil rights, that really went into effect in 1965. And when I look at my life, and I'm sure you look at your life, my dad was born in 1951. So my dad was 14 years old when segregation was really deemed off the books, right? And when I look at it, I sit there and go, okay, I don't believe in the rhetoric that some people's grandparents do. I don't believe in the rhetoric that some people's parents do. I feel like as we go through life and we get younger and younger and younger, like we're coming up, we're a new generation. We have a powerful voice that we can talk about now, and we're able to talk openly about race and where race exists in our opinion.
Mm-hmm.
As far removed as we are from MLK Jr., it was literally 3 days ago. I mean, I started to get all these flashbacks to times that I didn't even know, the black and white photos of seeing the dogs on leashes and seeing people get sprayed with water hoses. And, you know, I started to think like, I really hope that we're not going back to this world where you would have to drink out of a different water fountain than me. We couldn't be in the same place. And there was a club for you and a club for me. You know, we both came up in the 90s and the early 2000s. And at that time, I was listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop and NWA and Public Enemy. And, you know, I was loving hip hop music and I was loving pop music and I was loving country music. Like, I felt like it was so inclusive at that time. But I would hear older people go, you can't listen to that stuff. That's not you. Like, that's not your culture. And I would sit there and go, what? Why not? You know, Nelly's doing a remix with Tim McGraw. Why can't I listen to that? Like, that to me is perfectly acceptable. And I just feel like we're at a point now where when we don't have conversations and we don't listen to each other, we can't gain an idea of what the other person's all about.
Yeah, and mind you, I don't think that's what people want. I don't think people want segregation. I know that they don't, because if you look at the protests that were in the UK where they marched hand in hand, if you look at the protests in Colorado where they marched hand in hand, people of all colors, that's not what people want. That's not what they want. And this is not it to an extent. It is a black and white issue, but it's really a human and human issue. We have to value human life. I value and I pain just as much for the people that lost their lives to mass shootings. I pain and value that pains me just as much. What are we doing? Right. The value of human life has to mean more. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just lost 100,000 plus of them this year to something completely different that we didn't expect. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that takes people away from their families, that take people away from their kids. These are kids that have to grow up without parents. Like, there's a lot of issues that we have to discuss and go forward. But I say again, I don't think that's what people want. People don't want segregation, and people don't want war. People want to enjoy America and live their lives. They want to be able to take the holiday weekend or take the weekends and, you know what I'm saying, enjoy their lives in the park and enjoy their life. You know what I'm saying? But you can't just, I told myself, like, I can't just enjoy this week. I told you that. I'm not getting no rest this weekend because I got to get on the phone and call people in the community. And I got to try to create a balanced perspective. I can't tell them not to be angry. That would make, I'm angry. So I can't tell them not to be angry. But I have to tell them, then they ask the golden question, well, how do we fix it then? I can't answer that either. Unfortunately, what I can do is have these conversations and start the conversations so that we can have conversation so that we don't escalate it. What we saw Saturday could have ended up worse with the officers in Atlanta using the excessive force with the kids in the car. It could have turned out worse. Luckily, it didn't turn out as bad. It didn't have the ultimate worst result. And the mayor and the police chief stepped in and created a situation that made sense. But what if every mayor and police chief did what they did nationwide? Then we don't have shit burning up.
Well, and I think the other side of that is, you know, I think I think police departments and law enforcement agencies need to have an oversight committee. I think there has to be, and it has to be an impartial oversight committee. It can't just be made up of all different people where, we look at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court factors in different people, different walks of life, different understanding, their political beliefs are even different. And you really have to look at it. But on top of that, you also need somebody who understands the job. Like being a law enforcement officer, the stress that goes into that, it's mind-boggling. And I'm sure for those officers on Friday and Saturday night who are trying to keep the peace, for the protesters who are trying to be peaceful and keep things going, I'm sure the tensions for both are heavy on both sides.
Difficult job.
And ultimately, I mean, I've been so happy to see the videos of officers hugging protesters. I've been happy to see the sheriff in Michigan take his helmet off, lay his baton down, and say, I want to turn this protest into a parade, and we want to join you. Like, there has to be, like, already the imagery of what transpired over the weekend literally looked like a war. I mean, it looked like a war. You had a line of protesters and a line of cops in riot gear. And at some point, who's going to be the person that takes the flower and puts it in the barrel? Who's going to extend the olive branch to say, let's get the communication going? And if it takes a conversation among friends like you and I think that that's a start. I think more people have to understand the life that somebody else came from to really gain clarity and perspective.
Well, most people know, most people that I know someone or have personally had a sour interaction with cops. And I let them know, like, I've seen it as obviously a person that goes to clubs. There are whites and Asians and Latinos that have all had sour, situations with cops. A lot of time it's a civilian and authority issue. It's the authority is, I'm the authority. Well, yes, you're the authority, and you're with your authority, you have a duty. And that's the important thing to understand, is to serve and protect, right? So I think that we do have to break the stigma of, don't ever in any circumstance in life, don't ever speak to a cop. Like, that's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, we do have to break that cycle. But like you said, the training and the people that oversee the officers that they hire, and they have to drill that in their head. Just like, if someone goes to the military, they kind of drill in your head, this is how you're trained to be as a military person. This is what it means to be a cop. And we have to completely remove the stigmas from that come with police officers. And that's just not going to be given. When you look at the charts, when you look at the charts and the amount of cases and the amount of incidents, and you look at it, it's not going to be an easy job, but it's a job that we have to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to start somewhere. And I don't know if politically there's something we have to particularly vote on, or we did get body cameras, right? That's what I tell people. I think that when everything happened in 2015, 2016, they kind of push, you got to have those body cameras on, right? But now we need them on, because there are some officers, if they know they finna do some stuff that ain't right, then, you know what I'm saying? And that should be a charge in itself.
And I think part of it comes down to, when we've talked about these names, both of them, Gene out of Dallas, Texas, the young man that was shot by an off-duty officer, an officer coming home from work who thought that was her apartment if the argument was there, and it came down that that's not the case, and she was sentenced. I think that is a turning point. And what I don't want to see, and I'm sure nobody wants to see, you lose a loved one, you don't want to see your loved one die in vain. If there's anything that is good that can come out of the passing of George Floyd, or the shooting that involved Ahmaud Arbery and his untimely passing, Ahmaud Arbery might be the name that helps get hate crime on the books in Georgia.
Yeah.
And if that is a legacy that's attached to that, then we are seeing some positive steps to go in the right way.
Right.
And I think that you and I both have talked about that at length, of what's going to come out of the passing of George Floyd, because there's no one. I mean, even with my community of friends, there isn't one person that goes, oh no, I think that what happened was fair. There isn't anyone that I've talked to believes that George Floyd should have died the way that he did, for sure.
Right. It's inhumane.
Right.
Yeah. For sure.
Listen, I appreciate being able to sit down and talk with you and be able to gain perspective. I like the fact that you have a 2 Chainz plaque behind you. That's nice.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to, break a couple records. Yeah.
No,
It's
it's
a
good.
pleasure.
It's good to talk to you on that.
No, it's a pleasure as well, man. And we'll have more conversations. And like I said, I'm my thing has not been, I haven't been so active on social media because I've been on the phone with people. I've been on the phone literally with people, like almost being a counselor to the community. Like, hey, I know that you have to understand that people are angry and sad and torn apart on the inside, and that could have been anyone's father, anyone in our community's father. You know what I'm saying? And I think that their fear and my fear is for the rebels per se that are looting and what have you. Like if it happens again, it becomes a tougher conversation for me to tell them to stay calm and stay focused on. You see what I'm saying? The situation at hand. It becomes tougher every time it happens. It makes it harder on me as a person that's in the community. So we have to put something out there legally or whatever the case is. Like there has to be a point where it's like, hey, if whoever you are, you decide to murder another human being, regardless of what you are, it doesn't matter if you're a police officer, a lawyer, a judge, a firefighter, a criminal, a baseball player, a basketball player, football player, then you will be subject to the same laws in the same jurisdiction as everyone else. And I think that's the basic thing that everybody wants.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that when you look at the complaint sheet that came up against the officer who was eventually charged in Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
I played baseball for a long time, and I got really accustomed to 3 strikes and you're out. That's why I think it's so imperative that we have an oversight committee on our law enforcement. Now, obviously, that's going to come with a financial side of it that the lawmakers are going to have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anybody in any community wants to see what happened in Minneapolis, because the loss of someone's life really trickles down. I mean, just like you said, that could have been anybody's father. That could have been somebody's brother. At the essence,
Mm-hmm.
that was somebody's son. That was somebody's brother. That's somebody's friend. And whether they're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. We all hurt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We all hurt the same way when somebody's family member is torn from it. And that's where that oversight committee can really come in and kind of say, you acted inappropriate in this, and I'm sorry that took place, but we're going to have to move on. I mean, they would do that at our job. If you and I went on the air and said something wildly inappropriate, they would go, I'm sorry that happened, but you got to go.
Mm-hmm. No, people have to be held accountable.
Right.
That's the most important thing. And
it also comes to that personal responsibility. When people go to these protests, I said this on Twitter, that you can write the narrative that the news reports. Mm-hmm. If you get everybody on your side and you go, listen, we're not going to act out, and we're not going to set places on fire, and we're not going to be a part of that group, and you get the collective, the news has nothing to report but that. They only have that it was extremely peaceful in Atlanta, and obviously there's all these underlying things of, are there other groups that are involved? But collectively, I think more people are starting to understand that we can do this better together than we can apart.
Oh, of course. I mean, united we stand, divided we fall. We know, like, that's the premise of everything. Like we have to do better at just having conversations. So my thing has always been, I like to talk to people that I don't know, because I learn stuff and I'm a learner. Like, I want to learn, like, because tell me all about what you do, because I know nothing about that, and I can tell you about what I do, and then we'll at least have an idea of what we do, right? That doesn't mean I'm going to be into that, you're going to be into this, but then you'll be surprised, like the places I go and the conversations I've had, which may start uncomfortable because there's still some stigmas there, and there's still just some uncomfort with being different. You know what I'm saying? But I've been at the St. Regis at the restaurant, and sitting next to a white guy that looks at me kind of weird, and the next thing you know, we're having drinks and we're talking, and like, I didn't know you were into that. I'm into that. I do stock market too. What did you buy this week? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're all humans first. We bleed the same blood, and I think that it's healthy to have conversations. So in this, for anybody that sees this, I'll say, have a conversation with someone that you might not usually have a conversation with. Try it. It just breaks down some barriers. You know what I'm saying? Like, go have a conversation with a person that you think, I don't know if I could have a conversation with that person. How it will
Be
go.
open to it. You know, so many people just aren't open to learning about somebody else because they have this preconceived notion that they know what they're all about.
Yeah.
And we all have great stories to tell. You know, you and I met and instantly hit it off, and it was like, we need to continue having this conversation. When I sent you a text and said, we need to talk about this, you know, I need to get to know you more. I think that that's the openness that most people try to shut down, especially at times like this. It's better to understand where somebody else is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I pray for a good week this week. Hopefully there will be some more, some more steps towards justice. Hopefully things will settle and people will continue to protest and protest peacefully. I'm a personal believer in peaceful protest and that you can get results from it. And again, I come from a lineage of it, being that my some of my family members marched through Selma and in Selma, and you can get results that way. And another big thing, regardless of what your beliefs are, is June 9th. You know what I'm saying? I've been telling everybody I want to see all of this same energy June 9th when it comes time to exercise your right to vote for what you believe in. You know what I'm saying? Have this same energy. Let's flood the polls peacefully and show that, we want to change. If nothing else, it shows that we want to change. And I try not to get too, cemented into politics and everything, but politics is a necessary thing that we just have to do to put the people in place to make sure that they do the oversight of the police officers like me and you discussed earlier and so forth. So let's keep that same energy and try to just, hope for the best. And I pray and I hope that this will be a better week. This weekend was tough for all of us. I think as humans, as a nation, it's tough to watch. It's tough to stomach. There's tough conversations that were had, but I'm just hoping that this will be a better week, which will be followed by a better weekend. Because the year alone is a lot to deal with. We've had to deal with a lot this year.
A better week with progress ahead.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So no, we'll talk again soon, man. I appreciate your time. Go get you some morning show rest. As I get ready to clock in.
All right, buddy. We'll have a good show, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Salute.
Buddy.